Okay, yes, yeah, and then, okay, so. Does my video have to be on? I think it does. Okay. Oh, there's Lauren. There's April, there's Stephen, okay. Okay, here comes Molly. And let's see.
Hey, you're not gonna talk, are you?
How did you hear that?
Down, okay. Okay, Brad is like home. Okay.
Well, actually, not in the Adirondack.
Oh, in the Berkshires, okay.
Yeah.
Can people hear me? April, can you hear me? Yes, okay, all righty. So Stephen and Brad are on Zoom, Penny, and there are 4 of us here, so that's a quorum. Might even be one more than a quorum. Oh, and there's Dale, okay. So, let's see, so Penny, do we have just one set of minutes to approve? Oh, so Elaine's not here.
You know, I was sick for 3 weeks. But
Okay.
I sent the notes from the town out this afternoon, but I don't think anyone's had a chance to look at them.
Okay, and then were there minutes other than those?
Yeah, there are minutes from our, wasn't this this?
We can't really hear Penny if she's supposed to be talking so that we can hear.
Okay, so they can't hear you. Can you try? No, that's weird.
That was me.
That was you? Did you do that on purpose?
Closer, because they're not gonna do it. So now they should be able to hear Penny. You can present.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have to be this close to the, okay. Alrighty, so do we want to, so we have minutes from when? Do we want to?
I only heard from one person.
Okay.
I heard from
For what date?
the 9th. September 9th.
September 19th, okay. So Penny, so we had minutes from the meeting of September 19th that Penny sent out shortly after that meeting. Was anyone have any questions about those? No. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, does anyone want to second it? Okay, Jeff seconded the motion. So any other discussion about the meeting minutes from September 19th? Hearing none, I'm just gonna go, I'm not gonna go in alphabetical order, I'm just gonna go the way I see people on their pad. So we have a motion that's been seconded to approve the minutes from September 19th. Dale, how do you vote?
Dale, Hool, aye.
Okay, Brad Foster,
Aye.
Stephen Delmas,
Elmas, aye.
okay,
Moss, aye.
okay.
Jake's aye.
And Antonella's aye, so those minutes passed. And I haven't had a chance to look at the minutes from the 28th, so we can do those at the next
Okay.
meeting.
They're
Okay,
long.
all righty. Okay, and so the other thing that we do at the beginning of minutes, when Elaine is here to run meetings, and Elaine is here to run the meetings, is we take public comment. So is there any public comment? Let's see, I see April here. Let me see if I see anybody else here. Weezy. Amanda, you have your hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Hi. Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay. Actually, I have a question. Big surprise. Are you hearing me?
Now I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, here's my question. You can hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me, right?
Yes,
No? Okay. The question is pretty simple, and I think you might be able to answer it tonight. I'm asking it now. Has the town hired a commissioning agent for this library project? And I haven't heard anything about it, so I was wondering if that's happened yet. Thank you.
I don't think yet, no, we plan to.
has the town hired a commissioning agent? No,
But we will. I mean, yeah.
yeah. Hear the answer, Amanda? Okay, okay, well, I'll just assume she heard the answer. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, is there any other public comments? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to a presentation. So who's gonna share? Dominic? Let's see.
Everybody can see the screen. Right, so today, following on from our last committee meeting, we have continued to develop the plan in some small areas. We'd like to review some of those changes. So we'll be showing you some plan updates. We've also revisited the roof and looked to find some efficiencies in the roof design. So we'll show you some imagery of that. And primarily today, we wanted to kick off interior finishes selection. So today is really a kickoff for interior materials, whereby we can start to show you our design intent for what type of materials, flooring materials and colors. And this process will continue on through this phase and into CVs. So we have some samples here that we can show you, but the presentation will also include some imagery for everybody who's calling in as well.
Lauren had her hand raised. Do you have a
Yeah,
question?
I'm so sorry. I should have asked this before Dominic started speaking, but could for the benefit of those of us on Zoom, could you go over who is in the room with you? Because we don't know.
Sure. I'll start. I'm Mary Ann Antonellis. I'm the library director.
Penny Jakes, library building committee member.
I'm Jeff Quackenbush. Roger Holt, CMS.
Matt Odin's Architecture.
And Dominic Witt with Odin's Architecture.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So moving on, in front of you, you have a plan that was presented at the community meeting with some of the collections numbers. And today we are highlighting some of these elements that we'd like to present to you. So I've been working with Mary Ann on some children's room collections arrangements. So we'll show that today. Previous discussions, we were looking at how we might be able to incorporate some additional seating in adults reading room. And we've looked at a study carrel in the adults reading room, which includes a window. And then the roof design, we've looked at consolidating the roof so that it also covers the staff workroom and the porch and team room. So starting off with roof updates first. Here we have a view from the northwest, where you see the original flat roof condition over the staff workroom. And now we've looked at continuing the gabled roof to cover that portion and unify the roof design. This effectively simplifies the detailing here and allows us to be more efficient in construction. We also feel that the bar scheme of this project and the widening of the staff workroom and storage room allows this move. It feels well planted, as you see it here. So then moving to the northeast view, you can see the entry condition here with the teams and the porch roof as a flat roof, disengaged from the gable. And here you see a revised version of this where the gabled roof actually pitches up and creates an upturned roof. This is really a great way of managing water and snow at this entry condition. So because we have the porch roof, we really need to protect patrons, the entry into the building. This allows for a larger window at the teams room, which we think is a nice moment in for that space. And we're again consolidating structural elements. So the glulam rafters here, they intercept from the gable and upturn into this entry porch condition. This is an elevation of the east side. So you can see here the composition across the whole elevation. Again, the way we handle water and snow at this upturn, we're considering sheeting water off at the valley condition, and we're still working through gutter systems and how we manage this. I think we're also considering heat tape to allow for snow to melt during the winter periods as well. Moving on, you see a more zoomed in view of that upturned roof. And again from the south side. So again, we feel like that this upturned roof really gestures and is an inviting entry to the entry sequence for the building. And we wanted to also present this section, which describes a little more how the structural elements are supporting this upturn. They connect to the gabled roof, rafters, and then we are also considering a pitched ceiling condition in the vestibule, which really gestures and continues that that upturn and unifies that whole move together.
The structural members actually will slope all the way back over top of the vestibule so that we get the back span supporting the cantilever. So they'll go all the way back to that interior wall, which is why the ceiling in the vestibule is sloping like that, following the underside of that structure.
And would you see that structure inside of it?
You
No.
could, we modeled it here so that you don't, so that enclosure just kind of folds in and you don't see the structure, but we could look at having it exposed in the vestibule too. I think it's possible. We would just, you know, all of the ceiling material would be sitting on top of that structure and stuff. So yeah, it's doable.
So this was the last image that we had for the new roof. The next portion will be plan updates. If I'm free to move on.
I still don't like it, but there you have it. I'm sorry you weren't willing to show me a gable.
We just didn't feel like the gable was,
You should let,
from our viewpoint, a viable option.
would have been nice to show it anyway.
But we didn't feel comfortable with it. So we don't want to share something that we're not
But,
comfortable
you know,
with
we're
and
required.
aren't going to put
You're
our,
required.
and we're working with you to try and come up with a design that meets, you know,
Yeah.
a broad range of opinions. So I'm hopeful that we're doing that, but if other people want to offer up comment, we're happy to hear it.
So what would happen on the other side? The roof just continues to slope down. Did you explore just having the side just slope down?
We can't have it sloped down because then it doesn't provide the cover that we need at the front entrance. You don't want to enter into the building under a sloping eave.
Okay,
right? We've got to have some way to stop water and snow and ice from coming off the roof or icicles
Okay.
collecting there. So, I mean, in a way, this upturn is acting like a giant gutter effectively over the door, right? It's stopping the flow of stuff that's coming off the main roof. It's not dropping down onto a low roof. So it simplifies the construction of a low roof that is then flashing up into a wall. And, every time you have a transition from roof to wall to roof again, there's detail there that has to be worked out and waterproofing that has to be worked out. And so by eliminating two of those transitions, we feel like this is potentially a better solution in terms of kind of creating a watertight thing. But the other thing is the valley where the two roofs are meeting is actually outboard of the exterior wall. So if there was a problem there, you're beyond the exterior face of the building. And so you'll see it. It's not hidden behind a wall. But we also think we can detail that transition in a way that it will be pretty, we'll be pretty confident, I think, in its performance.
But,
Yeah.
if you look at, I like this. But, I'm having a little problem with the bump out with
The teen room. Mhm.
what if you were to continue the roof? The rest of the building over the room, but do your upturn of the entrance.
So sort of a split.
Split.
Yeah, we didn't look at that. We looked at a kind of a version of that where it sort of, instead of being kind of cut and folded, it came down and then one half folded up. So there was a sort of angled valley, you know what I mean? So if the whole roof slopes down, but you kind of bend up the corner of the roof over the front entrance. So it meant you had sort of a sloping angle, which didn't feel right to the building. But whether it's a kind of folded thing or it's two different sort of tabs, our feeling was that the length of those segments felt too like there was too much going on. It was a single move, whether it's flat like it was in the previous version, or like this with it's the same move all the way across, felt more appropriate in terms of the scale, given the length of the building. It needs something of a certain width that's substantial enough. It doesn't come far enough off the building to, we're limited in terms of the square footage that we have available to us with 5,000 square feet. So we can't have an 8 or 10-foot deep porch. And so that relatively modest projection sort of needs to be balanced, we think, by some substantial width.
Will you detail that as a porch
What do you mean?
under the
Do-
overhang by the
Yeah.
door? So there could be a chair under there, or
That's right.
it will be a
Yeah.
paved or stone
There would
surface.
be,
Yeah.
I would say, hardscape that would
Mhm,
take the whole
mhm.
footprint of that roof. Another thing to add as well as to why the pitch of the gabled roof, if it were to continue to the extent or the outer face of the team's room, is that it's so steep, it would really cut the window.
That's why I didn't think it would be able to maintain the same slope.
Right.
You'd have to change the
Yeah.
slope.
Yeah.
But that continues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the square footage of the roof? No?
The roof is at 4,996, something like that. It's
We're really-
pushing it.
Yeah. I think you could get a bench probably to the right of the entry doors against that wall. I don't remember what that dimension is, but it's probably 10 feet it's more than that. It's probably,
13 something.
yeah, because it's 2 bathrooms, right?
Yeah,
So it's
and-
probably like 14 feet.
And what is the dimension, I don't know how to describe this, where the teen room is, the bump out, the
Yes,
depth of the
yeah.
bump out?
The depth of the bump out is 5 feet, something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we pulled the teen room out. So we maximized the roof to get as much coverage as we could at the front entrance. So the edge of the roof back to the face of the building is about 5.5 feet. but then the entry doors are set in another 2 feet.
Hmm,
So from door to edge of roof, you've got 7.5 feet of cover. From
Mhm.
building to edge of roof, you've got 5.5 feet of cover, I think. And so we pulled it out as far as we could, staying under the 5,000 square foot threshold. And we made the decision to pull the teen room out with it, by another foot of width in the teen room, which felt like it could use it. Rather than holding the teen room back and, you know, having more of a kind of roof overhang over teens, which is why it comes out as far as it does. So that was the thinking anyway, that we saw an opportunity because the roof was gonna be there regardless of where the teen room wall was, right? That square footage is already locked in at 4,996. And so if the teen room is a foot wider, it doesn't count against us in terms of the spring width. So we were able to get a little more square footage out of it that way.
can you do something to emphasize the door entrance with color or something? I still feel like it sort of disappears.
I think we're also including the lighting
Mhm.
here, so that's going to be a feature that's obviously something at night. I think another thing to evaluate this will be the landscaping
Mhm.
that will help frame that
Mhm.
entry. We are going to be planted in front of this, the entry walk, and your kind of approach sequence will kind of frame this as well. Our sense is that, you know, the use of wood here, in juxtaposition to the slate helps us a lot, to really signal entry and the exposed structure, I think, right? You'll see the upturn of the, these rafters, that condition is kind of helping welcome you or indicate, entry. If I go back to this.
Yeah, the roof and to Dominic's point, the ground plane, I think are going to both help signal entry in a way that is sort of a larger gesture than just the door. I understand what you're saying, and we're limited, you know, the lobby,
Yeah.
everything's gotten pinched down. The door is as wide as the lobby is, so it can't get wider than that. We can't get more glass at the front entrance because we don't have the room inside to do that. There's a book drop on one side and a bathroom on the other. You know, could we play around with lining that opening with something other than wood? Yes, we could think about what that might be. I don't know off the top of my head what we would do there, but there might be a way to introduce some other material that draws more attention to it. But our hope was that the wood, as distinct from the slate, combined with the wider roof and whatever is happening at the ground plane paving and landscaping, was a big enough gesture, despite the width of that doorway, to kind of signal this is entry. Which is why we also prefer this taller roof to the previous version, which was so much lower. I think the scale of the entrance is better in this version.
I like the wood. I also think the exposed structure does a lot to entice entry here. I mean, everything there is reading the entry to you.
Mhm.
So I think this version is a lot better than the other one, the scale of everything.
Mhm.
I like it, 1,500 gets more space.
So there've been a couple of times like the teen room is getting more space, the staff room on the other side, the ceiling is higher and there was more storage. And so anytime I think more, I'm worried about the budget, and I just want to make sure that we aren't doing anything to let this budget creep up, because we can't let the budget creep up.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
when we say more, we're talking about like,
Right, I know, it's just. a
you know,
few feet.
inches
Right.
more.
Right, but we just, that has to be the thing that when we're making every decision, has to be the first thing we think about. Is that we're really on a budget and we don't want the budget.
Mhm.
We don't want this cost estimate to come in higher than that $6.2 million we approved
Mhm.
on August 1st.
Yeah,
I have another question
Yeah.
when this topic is exhausted.
Sure.
which it may be.
Dale
Dale.
has his hand up.
Okay, so for Dale.
Yes, hi. I agree that this new entrance design is very dramatic, but I also can't support it. The idea of a reverse roof, in Dominic said heat tape, I can't support it. So, I would prefer anything but this, honestly. And, but that's just my opinion. So,
I have to start, the heat tape in my mind is a no, because it's not needed.
I don't think we actually need the heat tape. The heat tape came up in the design subcommittee meeting. Stephen brought it up as a possibility here. And I think that I don't think we're gonna need it. I think we can detail this in a way that snow is managed and, and Dale, we had this conversation about snow last week and the way that we're gonna deal with snow at the front entrance is the same as the way we're dealing with snow on the rest of this roof. We don't want the snow to sheet off the building. We want to keep it on the roof. We're gonna have snow rails along the entire length, both sides, to hold the snow on the roof and give it time to melt and drain off as liquid, not slide off as ice and snow. That's the plan. And so the same approach would hold true for the front entrance. That upturn is preventing snow and ice from sheeting off the main roof over the entrance. And from there, the plan is that we'll have along the length of that roof a cricket that, and we're actually thinking that the back side of that roof could be all, heat welded membrane with tapered insulation to get a cricket in there that's directing water off to the two ends. And we're still sort of trying to figure out how we're going to convey water down from the two short ends. But, it's very possible that we'll end up with a scupper condition and a downspout there. But that's something we've got to work through. But we think that we can create a condition there where the snow is held there. It's not sliding off in front of the entrance and it's melting as it's exposed to the sun, and as it melts, it's draining off the roof. But while it's sitting up there, it's, in large part outside the footprint of the building. And as I said, we're hoping to be able to detail that in a way that it's, it's pretty secure.
well, Matt, I hope you can excuse me for this, but I am a little bit sensitive about roof design with this project.
I understand. I don't think that this is anything like what we had talked about 10 years ago, though. That was a totally different condition, and it was the entire length of the building. I also frankly never thought that it was as much of a problem as some people thought, but be that as it may, I don't think that this is, and I can appreciate the sensitivity, but I don't think that this is akin to that.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. It's, just the whole idea of the subject matter. I mean, I agree with everything you just said.
Any other questions about the roof before we move on to other items?
Right, moving on.
I had a question about windows.
Oh, sure.
It came up briefly at the subcommittee meeting last week, the idea of stealing one of the windows from the teen room and giving it to the study room or the reading nook.
Yes.
Is that cost prohibitive?
It's not, and we are developing ideas around that. I do have some exterior imagery to show of the adults room. So we were investigating how we could introduce an extra window into the adult reading room as one move. And we are still developing what this team's room window could be. I think there is room here to investigate potentially more solid wall. And because we have such a large window, it might be able to yield some more collection storage along that wall, and then we could then, as you say, turn over that glaze to another space. So I'll show you what we have developed. It'll be a few slides down,
Okay,
and we can investigate that there. We felt though that looking at to your question specifically about the reading nook, we felt like another punched opening here was starting to be too much on this elevation. Like we have so much glass already here, with the study room and the teams. Yes, we could reduce the glazing here. We had a look at a few different layouts, and introducing another window at the reading nook didn't feel as balanced.
so just for orientation,
Yeah.
if you go from where your cursor is to the right.
Yep.
That is what space?
Study.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the study.
So this is the study room. The reading nook as well, the adults reading nook. We're trying to maximize shelving there. We have good opportunity to do that with that solid wall. Also, when I get to the plan, the way that a study carrel at the wall kind of implicates the use of that room a little bit with the soft seating centered there. We felt there's a bit of a clash of people coming in using that study carrel and then leaving. It didn't set up as quiet a space as the reading nook. Would be problematic and useful. So a few considerations there. Yeah. So moving on to some plan updates. So first, before we go to adults, we'll look at children's here. So this was the plan that we last left off. That was really, before I move on, has an L scheme for shelving. And it has these two tables and chairs, which can be used for many different uses, primarily for computer tables, so that children and their parents could use this for a laptop or iPad or any device, tablets. Linear feet here, we're at 532, about 95% of our target. It includes 10 chairs where the target was 11. But again, basically it allows for a larger table and seating nook within the children's area. And so, previous conversations about the mixed programmatic uses of this space. This is how this was starting to develop. Then continuing on from there, there was a request to make this bank of freestanding shelving mobile. Now, if you look at this, this was a little bit challenging to incorporate in this layout, where if you were to have all of these mobile, it wouldn't really work as a one-sided unit to close the L here. And we have offset shelving here because of this corner. So this really streamlines the ability for mobile shelving to be arranged like this. It frees up the children's computer table, and we feel there's more flexibility in this layout in its entirety, as far as our shelving counts are still at 95%. And if you're really considering this open space for flexibility, the current layout kind of sets you up for that. We would have 3 separate mobile shelving units here in a line. So we're close to the same collections, and you have more flexibility. We incorporated 2 tables and chairs here in this reading nook. You could break them open and have different programs here. So that was it for children.
What are you showing along the window?
So the window as well was originally a bench with shelving, single row of shelving underneath. We are now considering this as mobile shelving, so that there would be 4 banks of 3 foot wide, single face countertop shelving, but it's only one row high, so it's still 18 or so, 20 inches tall. So we're still keeping the views to the north out of this window, and again allows you flexibility. These could all be removed and located somewhere else.
I mean, we're still sort of thinking about that as a play surface, a surface you could sit on, but also have collection, and so, and the flexibility to potentially relocate them or reconfigure them. I mean, it's, again, we've talked about this a few times. It's a little bit of a work in progress. We'll look at furniture solutions there too, but we're trying to keep the solution there, something that is, that allows for some flexible use. I think Lauren had a question a minute ago.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, I'm looking at the seating count and I count 10 chairs, including the 2 adult chairs, unless you're not counting the 2 sort of computer predominant chairs.
It's a typo, yeah. Lauren, you're right.
Okay.
So I'll revise that when I issue this.
What do you think, Marianne?
So could a third soft chair fit in there where those 2 are?
I think there's potential,
I
yeah,
think so.
Yeah,
and that would get us to our 11.
yeah. And I'm just looking at those, the bench along the window, and I'm just feeling like that should just be a bench. And not, like I'm thinking about, a kid with a piece of paper drawing a picture and it's on the separation between the sections, and then their picture gets wrecked because the pencil went through. So I think it should just be a built-in, millwork bench in that area. And that the, and that the flexibility isn't that important.
I think the trade-off.
I beg to differ, and I can tell you right now that Andrea is going to be more insistent than I am about maximum flexibility in that particular instance. However, I still, counting that as collection space, I still have an issue with that, because I think you need some place to put all the toys. And we had discussed possibly making that cabinetry for toy storage under those seats or bench or whatever it ends up being.
Lauren, you said you beg to differ. Could you explain that a little more?
Marianne, I heard Marianne say she didn't think we needed flexibility in
I
those
see. Thank you.
pieces, and I differ with that
Yeah.
opinion. This is not something I don't feel that strongly about it, but I predict, and this, depending on when our next meeting is, this may be my last meeting and Andrea is taking over. So just be prepared. We don't always feel the same way about certain things. But I do feel strongly about having some place to put all the toys and puzzles and stuff that you're going to have.
And Lauren or Marianne, we've got, as you remember, probably from the interior view, there's the niche that these wall shelves fit into is taller than the top shelf. And so there's a top to the shelf, to the shelving unit below it. And then there's room to the underside of the soffit above. And that could be for book display. It could be for chemistry sets. I think you mentioned at the last meeting, Marianne. So I guess one question is, there's a fair amount of real estate. That whole west wall, both runs, the straight run and the angled run, have that linear footage available for those kinds of things, but it's too high for a child to reach. And so I guess the question is, could that be where toys are stored, or do the toys have to be in a spot where the kids have access to them?
Can I just ask how much space is above the underside of the soffit to the ceiling?
14 inches, something like that. It's more than 12.
We have a little bit of control over that dimension too. But yeah, it's taller than a.
The only reason no, not from the top of the shelf to the underside of the soffit. I'm asking about the above the soffit. How much space is there up to the bottom of the structure?
Oh. Yeah.
Is that
Well,
multiple
it
feet?
varies.
4 foot,
It
something like that.
varies on the angled wall, right? Because as the angle is moving deeper into the building, it's kind of traveling up the slope of the roof. And that's where we have clear story window up high, right? So there's limited wall space above the shelving niche along that wall. On the other wall, the true west wall, that's solid wall all the way up to underside of structure at the eave. And
That
so
could be
that point
4
is probably,
feet.
yeah, probably around 4.
The reason I'm asking this, and this may never come up in Shutesbury, but we have one municipality where the library was storing toys on top of the cabinets in a children's program room, and the fire marshal said it was a fire hazard and they had to take them down. So just be aware that some building inspectors and fire marshals have differing views on what's a fire hazard and what isn't.
Okay. But so that would count for books too, right? Display any, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I really understand that argument because there are combustible books all over the building.
It was the proximity of these soft toys to the
Yeah.
ceiling. That was the problem. And that's why I asked what the dimension was from the bottom of the soffit to the top of the ceiling. And it may be that since this building isn't sprinklered, it's not an issue anyway. I don't know. I don't know exactly why this was a problem, but it was a problem in that particular project.
It's something that we should definitely review with the fire marshal. We'll definitely review the project with them.
Yeah.
So that's something we should
Great,
ask.
thank you.
Or fire chief, not
Chief,
sorry, fire marshal. We're not going to the state.
chief.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make more sense just to make the, what are they, 18-inch high shelving along the window higher so the toys could be at kid level?
Yeah, that is one solution. The thing that we're still really grappling with is this glazing condition on the north side of the building. And it's tying in currently to the water table condition that is, that circulates the whole footprint of the building. So it's a condition that unifies the project, and that in hand with maximizing views out north is something that we feel very strongly about. I know collections, is something that we're also working through as well. So we feel that the composition of that north elevation by raising the sill of that window, it's a bit in conflict with
Well, we've
the
made a
exterior.
lot of compromises at this point,
Yes.
And I think aesthetic over practicality needs to win.
Right. It wouldn't become a bench anymore, I guess, if it were to go to be taller.
What do you think about that, Mary Lou?
I think that so if it were 20, how high are these tables? How high is that?
32? No,
Probably 28.
These,
That's kind of like a benchy thing, that's lower than a table. That's kind of high, right? Yeah. But it's different.
I mean, the bench.
Oh, look at
the bench height
her.
would be sort of top of these doors.
Yeah, and that
18.
like
yeah.
25.
So 18 inches.
Is a little bit. Just like that,
Okay, but why, and how high is it to the top, Mom?
What is it, 20? It's like 25 and a half to the top.
So what if it was 24 inches high? And there were 2 12-inch,
It would
Shelves.
need to be taller. We'd need a base condition, there's 4 inches, then the countertop is another 2 inches.
Yeah, the
It
shelf
gets
has a
close to
floor.
30.
and
Yeah.
why is that so terrible? I can tell it changed.
Yes.
It does. I mean, we can look at it. We can look at it.
I'm also wondering how we treat the jam conditions. Do we pull the east jam of that window, you know, further west and allow for the tall shelving to wrap across the north so that we can still have a nice full height condition? We're kind of making that less wide, but you can see here in this image that you have that water table condition.
Oh, okay.
And it's a rule that follows around, and how we detail this, we wouldn't want slate, a sliver of slate here, that doesn't feel right. Extending the water table up,
Why don't we look at it and see if there's a way to resolve that condition? I mean, is that your preference, Marianne, that it's taller there and that then accommodates 1 row of cubbies and then 1 row of books on top of that?
Or it might just be 2 rows of cubbies. You know, I could see that being 2 rows of cubbies.
So
Very
if it's 2 rows of
easily.
cubbies, though, then it's kind of the same problem if it's 1 row of cubbies. Where does that collection go in that room? Right, right now, we're accommodating collection there.
Right.
So if
right.
that collection
Well,
is,
the collection is not just books. So the collection is also things. So the collection is kits and, you know, the chemistry kits and the storytime backpack kits and puppets and puzzles. So some things like board games and puzzles will work very well up on top of that, the shelving on the sides. But it might be nice if some of the kits fit into those cubbies or so some of the collections are big bulky things.
yeah. I guess what I'm asking
Yeah.
is, we know we need some collection, whether it's traditional book collection or it's objects and toys. We know that we need some collection at that location. Do we know that we need 2 tiers of collection at that location?
No, it could be 1 tiered collection and 1 tier of toys. And that's quite a bit of
And when you-
room for toys.
Same books and toys.
Well, books could be on 1 shelf. Well, or toys that you check out
Mhm.
on 1 shelf and toys that you play with in the library on the other. So,
I guess back to my earlier question, how much of the non-book collection items can we assume are sitting on top of the wall shelves, if any?
a lot.
Okay, so when we're talking about linear footage of collection, we should be accounting for that space. In other words, the number here does not currently count that top of shelf display area as available linear footage for collection.
Right.
But in theory, it could, at least a percentage of it.
Right.
And so I guess the question is, if we are counting that, how much should we count? Because I don't know how much of those kinds of objects we have. Maybe there isn't enough to fill that whole
Right.
area, or maybe
Right.
that's not what you want.
I'm sorry, that would not count as collection shelf linear feet. The top of that's for display. A lot of times.
For
libraries
things
do
like
use
chemistry
it.
kits and even for those kinds of things like puzzles and chemistry kits.
Well, I don't know, Marianne, how did you figure out your collection linear footage?
Well, I mean, I actually think they have plenty of collection linear footage in here. And that we don't need to count it as more, but I do think we'll end up using it. Because we'll have things that we want to put up high out of little kids' reach. But you know, but that square footage count, that 558
The
linear
linear,
feet,
that's a linear footage count.
right, includes some amount of linear footage for things.
And you said it
So-
also includes some linear footage for things that, when we did the project, the plan, we thought we needed, but now we don't need anymore.
Right,
Audiobooks.
right, so 40 feet for audiobooks and DVDs, and I really don't think we're gonna have audiobooks and DVDs, you know,
Yeah.
or, you know, or
It's
not.
not a growing
So-
collection. It's
so-
not a growing collection.
It's not a growing collection, and
So-
I mean,
so-
I'm.
Can
Yeah.
I just suggest that Marianne, maybe you and I, or in the next week or so, take a look at the building program and the collection analysis and figure out for the children's room specifically, what is really needed.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah, and I mean, where I was trying to go with that, and Lauren, I think that would be a great exercise. Where I was going with that is, do we need 2 rows of storage at the window?
Exactly.
Or do we only need 1, or do we not need any? And I mean, we're willing to study what happens if that has to be 2. We just want to know before we do that, that we actually need 2 tiers of shelving there to accommodate whatever you're thinking should.
well, I
You
think
know what I
it
mean?
would be nice if toys could be there.
Yeah, we
So,
agree.
you know, and I think.
But does it need to
yeah,
be toys and something else?
Right,
Or is there enough room elsewhere based on the collection numbers and the amount of shelving that we have, that we don't need a second tier of shelving in that location for that something else, whatever? it is?
probably, because
Okay.
we're at 529, so if you took 12 feet out of that gets us to, we're still over 500,
Yeah.
well over 500. Well, not well over 500, but
517, yeah.
yeah, 517. And so that's just 40 feet less than the original target. So I think that's really fun. And that's a lot of room for toys.
Are
Yeah,
we
but-
talking about, are we talking about the west wall now or the north wall? I'm sorry.
We're talking about the
wall.
north wall
The north wall, okay.
as toy storage.
I think we should just, to be the dimensions of that are like, what is comfortable for what age kid we think is going to be kneeling or standing in front of it. Like using, if it is a play space, then the height of it is dependent on what height this big kid needs.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that we've seen that used in other locations, whether it's our building or others, like I'm thinking about one of the libraries in my town. Kids will kneel in front of that space and there are toys underneath, and they'll play with stuff up on top of that surface, or they'll climb up onto the surface. And I'm thinking about, Lauren, I don't know if you know the Coolidge Corner Library.
I do know.
Children's room.
Yeah.
You know, that's a pretty popular surface. That one happens to be upholstered, I think, but it's a good height
Same
for
in
kids to
Norwell.
come.
I mean, it's a
Yeah, it's same in Orland.
work / play surface for kids, for sure. It's right, right height,
Yeah.
so.
And then, I mean, I can also see, it's gonna be, you know, a long time before the shelves we're not gonna move in year 1, the shelves are gonna be full.
Mhm.
You know, we're gonna move in and then over time, they're gonna fill up, so it could be that, you know, that some toys are also on the bottom couple of shelves, you know, in that corner, there. And then, you know, we might find that nobody ever sits at that table and that we move that somewhere else, or we, you know, get rid of the table and we put some other kind of thing there. So, so I think that there's room for flexibility and there's certainly plenty of room to start out. The other thing is that toys, both toys that are to play with or toys that are, or other things that are tomorrow can be on display on top of that. That's gonna be a flat surface, that row of 3-foot high shelves.
The freestanding one, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then this section over here,
Even in the alcoves, the wall shelving there, you'll have room to
Yeah.
put things on. So there's a fair amount of display surface
right,
in the children's room. Pretty much every surface of shelving in the children's room, with perhaps the exception of the one at the window, because you want to keep it clear for sort of
Right.
use by the kids.
Right.
Every other surface, you could display something on.
yeah. Yeah. And what's the square footage of that room?
I don't have it on the top of my
Okay.
head, but I'll-
Alright.
It was
Okay.
9 something, I feel like.
yeah. I don't recall.
Okay.
It's been a while since I looked at that.
Okay.
So, Marianne, did you have a reference in terms of the layouts, the shelving and furniture layouts of the options that?
I like this option.
This, yeah,
I
okay,
like this
good.
too.
All right.
Nice. So moving on to adults. So here we see a plan of adults, and we've been looking at how we might be able to nest a study carrel in this west wall. Again, here we were looking at adding some flexibility to patrons, giving them another surface that they could sit at. We find that this condition in other libraries is heavily used, and kind of it's a real go-to for people to do some studying or reading. So this, if we look at the numbers, takes a little bit of the collections numbers out, because we've removed some shelving here to open this space up. But we've given adults, there's still the collections shelving that is outside of teens room. So the teens room is at 100 linear feet. The target is 120. So teens is a little under, but if we then give this shelving over to adults, we get to 540. So we're around 95%. Again, Penny, we were looking at conceptually how we could locate a study carrel centered here in this room. And we just felt that with people coming in and out, there's more circulation. I mean, people would be coming in and out to browsing anyway, but that kind of conflicting programmatic use in this, what we consider more quiet area, in turn with the exterior layout of, a window here in the elevation didn't feel right. So this is the plan. If we go to a cut section, orientating yourself, you see the meeting room to the left here, moving through adults room, you can see this window condition here, this study carrel. So again, it helps open up this moment here on the north side of the adults room as well, with the soft seating in front of it, that north facing window, and then the study carrel adjacent to it.
Everybody is gonna wanna sit there. Everybody.
In Norwell, that's where everyone sits.
Yeah.
And they're spaces.
Yeah.
And it's too bad we don't have enough room and money to do
Yeah.
more of those.
Yes. It'd be great if this project could just grow a little more.
Wouldn't it be great? So Powerball is up to, I don't know. Knowing this right now, I really all go by a
Did nobody
ticket,
win last night?
not that I heard.
In lieu of Powerball.
Back to the
Yes. So we all wish and dream. Looking at this here, we have two sections. The lower is a full building section, and it just helps you understand this condition of a single study carrel in the adults room, and then above that is a blow up to see, you can kind of see that condition. We think it creates a nice moment. Obviously it'll be a popular use, and it pairs well with the seating that's adjacent to this north facing window. We also have an exterior view where you can see now how that would read on the west elevation.
I have a concern about the shade for that window. Do we want to eliminate that glass that's way up high because you need a mechanical shade for it? Because it's a west facing.
It is
I
a west
think we
facing.
could do it with a manual
We
shade.
could,
You don't have to
Okay.
be
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
And you would definitely want a shade. on the
Yeah.
window. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you guys think about trying, as Penny said, it would be nice if there were 2 or 3 of those
Or 5.
spaces, right, or 5, instead of just 1.
I think 1 is fine. This is Shutesbury. This is not Norwell.
No, understood,
Yeah.
understood.
But you gotta know, in that library, that's the only place anyone was sitting. Every single one of those spots
Yeah.
was full. You're gonna have to take reservations.
Well, and maybe we'll have,
Yeah,
they'll have to pay to sit there.
so,
Okay.
I don't see how you can do more, but wouldn't it be
No.
nice?
But I think it's very.
Yeah, I mean, doing more means
Right.
reducing shelving,
Yeah.
which we can't
Right.
do, so even doing this was a little bit of a struggle to try to maintain shelving, because the other thing we had to do was pull back the freestanding shelf behind it in order to give enough room for the chair to be able to pull out and, have circulation around it, so
But I think that little seating corner is nicer with,
it is
with the
nicer with it.
staggered lengths of
Yeah,
shelving.
we agree with that.
So can we talk about the shelving in the teen room? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure that I can suggest a place to put more shelving.
So,
I wonder where.
no, this is always very fruitful.
Is it?
It is. So this plan is the updated plan with what we propose for children's and adults and teens. So what has changed here now with teens and the larger opening is it's allowed us to have 5 high shelving here on this floor.
And why
So-
can't we just have 5 high shelving on the window wall and have the window start higher up?
I think
You
that
couldn't
window
see
is
out.
gonna look a little awkward in that location with such a high sill. We can look at it and
What if you just
see,
did
but I think we could do a portion of that wall, possibly with high shelves, and
Yeah.
maybe, I mean, to the point that came up last weekend, Jeff, I think raised, made a comment about that window, and we agreed that, there's some work still that needs to be done with that window. Like, it doesn't feel like it's quite right. And one of the things we talked about was maybe it shouldn't be the full width of the room, maybe it should be asymmetrical. And so if it was a third less wide and we gave over some of that wall space for shelving, and we didn't try to do window above shelving, we just said, we're writing off this section of wall, and that's gonna be 5 high shelving that turns the corner, and then we've got a window that drops down, kind of like the window seat in adults, that gives you a point where there's a lower sill and you can see out, which I think will be more pleasant, frankly, for the teens, but also the circ desk wants to be able to see out that window too, I think. When you're at that desk all day, being able to see into the teen room is important, but being able to see out to the outside is also nice. I mean, that's one of the things about the Norwell circulation desk that we like, is that from there, you've got a great view, not just of browsing, but out, to outside, and you can, in that case, you can see who's coming into the building. You'll see people walking or cars approaching. It just gives you a little more kind of connection to the outdoors and a little more visual control, which we like. And so I think some portion of that window needs to come down to a low enough sill that you can see over. It doesn't have to be as low as what we're talking about in children's, obviously. I forget what we had there. Was it 3 high at the window?
We had teams, yes.
Yeah. So I think we've got to study that a little bit more. I think we can increase shelving. As Dominic said, he already has, and I think we can probably go a little further with that and maybe reduce the size of the window a little bit to do that. You look skeptical.
I think we can achieve 126 with no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because even if I hit the Powerball, we're not going back to the drawing board, okay? We're just. All right.
Nice.
Okay.
So that concludes the plan revisions, and now on to interior finishes. So again, this process is really to read your temperature on initial thinking. And by no means are any of these finishes or color selections set in stone at this point. So I shared this plan previously. We have different material finishes here. Resilient flooring in yellow, so the meeting room, storage room, book drop, staff workroom and storage, teams and children's study areas all have resilient flooring. We have a tile zone, which is the lobby, browsing, circulation, bathrooms. And then we have carpet, primarily in adults, also the reading nook and director's office. We have a surface rug, which is currently shown for children's as well. These rose-colored carpets is representing a second choice of finish. So, you know, a highlight color. There's potential there for that. The white floor finishes are just concrete, sealed concrete. We have a walk-off mat for the vestibule.
Can you explain to everybody the bidding process where even if you pick a color and pattern, they not mean you're going to get it?
That's correct. Yeah.
We
Even color?
can't hear, we can't hear
Colors-
Jeff. We can't hear Jeff.
Yeah, so Jeff asked, he asked about the process for public bid and the need to specify 3 or equal, and the fact that you can't really predict which of those 3 or equal or an alternative is actually going to be submitted for the project. We've had really good luck in our public projects, not to say that that's something we're banking on, but that's kind of just to show our sense for costing of certain materials and being at least preemptive about that. So, you know, not relying on the most expensive material, hoping to get that and then having 2 cheaper or equals. There is certain specification, you can write the spec in certain ways that you can control quality of materials, and that is one way that you can at least ensure that you have a good quality product. And therein, you then supply 3 or equal where you like some finishes of different manufacturers, and one of the 3 you would get if they're kind of in the ballpark for pricing.
So usually with the 3 equals, we're going to pick 3 manufacturers and 3 lines of carpet and 3 colors that are all kind of generally the same in terms of strategy. You know, we come up with a strategy for how we want to approach finishes, both in terms of color and in terms of, you know, material, in terms of pattern. And we say, okay, there are 3 carpets that we can find that generally meet that approach. And we review them with you, and we put them in the specs, and we see which one we get. And we wait until we get the bid results, and they submit on carpet sometimes to finalize exactly what that pattern is. But we know generally what the range is. And all 3 of those carpets are the same price point. You know, we're not going to pick one that's super expensive and one that's really cheap, because they're going to pick the cheap one every day. And so we pick 3 that are equal enough and we're comfortable with the way they all look, so that no matter which one they pick, I mean, we're gonna have preferences, obviously, but it's already been
The
better.
three that are basically interchangeable, that we will be fine with if there's any of them.
Yeah, as much as we can, that's the goal. And as Dominic said, we've had good luck and we can't bank on that, but we've, generally because the things are equal, the discussion is, well, what's the one that you want? And we tell them and they say, okay, and that's the one we get. There have been a couple instances like with lighting where we don't get a specific fixture, but let's say more than 9 times out of 10, we're getting the products that are the preferred products because they're generally, in the same cost ballpark. And so there isn't a strong incentive for the sub or the GC to go someplace else, go with it cheaper. That doesn't mean that they can't offer up substitutions beyond the 3 products that we specified. That they are allowed to do that, and we have to then, they are technically obligated to demonstrate that substitution is equal to what we've specified, and then we have to disabuse them of that argument.
And you have skill at that?
Sorry?
You have a skill at doing that?
Not always. We had one project where the window manufacturer was a substitution,
Mhm.
and we had a hard time arguing that it wasn't unequal, but we thought it was an inferior product, but we kind of got stuck with it.
Mhm.
And it was fine. And the challenge was it was different than what we had used as the basis of design. And so all of our details had to change. So it was a lot of work.
So there's
to go
some
back.
cost there.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of our time to sort through that. So it doesn't always work in your favor, but we've had pretty good.
Brad has his hand up.
So there's a very minor question. The vestibule has a walk-off mat. What is a walk-off mat?
So a walk-off mat is a inlay into a recessed concrete subfloor, and it basically allows people entering the building to track off dirt and mud. It's a stainless steel construction, and there's very hard wearing surfaces. There's different types. We didn't bring one in today, but we can definitely give you some information about that. We like one that has a grid construction, and you can pull that out and vacuum it clean and then set the grid back in. And the grid is actually finished with a very hard wearing carpet-like finish. So when you look at it, you kind of see these lines of carpet, and it allows for snow, salt, dirt to kind of fall in between. It requires some maintenance, but it's a very effective way to keep the lobby clean. And people undoubtedly, bring this into the building, the dirt and muck, and that needs to be handled somehow. So, yeah, that's what we typically detail there for a vestibule.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, can people come in any of the entrances at any time? Will they all be unlocked, or how is that usually?
We haven't
Yeah.
really gone through that, but the main entry is the vestibule.
Mhm.
Technically, all of the other exits are egress only. But how we control the locks and exiting the building or re-entry,
Mhm.
generally all of these would lock, is my sense.
Mhm.
So that you
I would
can't
like,
enter.
I would like most of the doors to be able to be open so that if people go out,
They can get back.
they can get back.
Yeah.
So that's just, there's security question, and this is something that it can go both ways, or
Right.
some doors are both
Right.
entry and exit, and others are more controlled, like the meeting room. But you may have an event where you want to keep those open. So,
I mean,
that's a conversation for door hardware.
The approach to those doors is typically different than the entry doors. Like we have a vestibule at the entry, but we don't have vestibules at all of the other doors because we can't really afford the space.
Mhm.
And the use of those doors is much more intermittent than the main doors of the building, that people are going to be coming and going all day long. Whereas the number of times somebody might go out the adult room door, sit outside, and then come back in is much less frequent. And so we don't tend to focus so much on like walk-off mats and the need for vestibules. And the code doesn't require a vestibule in instances like that.
In reality, the other doors aren't gonna have, like, the entrance is gonna be the one that is clear of snow. You're
Right.
gonna be able to get into.
So
It'll be the
it won't be
easiest
an
entrance
issue.
for the building when there's snow.
Yeah,
Right.
So,
Anyways,
Will-
95 degrees.
yeah.
Will you, I know, well, I forget what the term you used about embracing the rain. Will you have to, will we have to celebrate the rain when we go in and out of those doors, or will they be shielded from the sheeting rain?
Well, we'll have some sort of solution for rain diversion or collection at
each of the
egress
doors.
points, yes. We can't have roof overhang everywhere. We have it at the doors on the far side of the lobby. That's the one, aside from the front entrance. Well, actually, the two ends also. You've got a little bit of
Well,
coverage.
yeah, it wouldn't be, people are gonna mostly enter and exit through that door, through
Yes.
the main entrance. And then I could just see that people might be in the children's room and then they would wander out the door and then they would wander back in. But not when it's pouring rain or
Yeah.
when there's ice and snow.
Well,
So-
and anywhere we have a door to the outside, it's gonna go out to a paved surface. It's not going out to grass that's gonna be
Right.
muddy and, so you're walking on something that's not,
Mhm. Right,
if you go out and come back in, you're not covered in mud all of a sudden.
right.
So moving on, so paired with the finishes for the floor, we're also starting to develop an attitude for how color may be incorporated into the scheme. So what you're looking at here is a cut section of the building looking west. So you have the meeting room to the right, this yellow portion, with the kitchenette, and we're looking at segmenting the different spaces in the bar scheme and creating interest for these different kind of zones. Then we have the circulation in green, that's kind of central. The adults has a light blue, and then the children's has a darker blue. So from this section, you can only see a portion of the wall color. Beneath that, we have this interwoven line, and that's really a diagram for, it's a plan diagram of what walls are actually being painted that color. So for the meeting room, you just have a single wall. When you get to the circulation space, you can see the bathroom entry doors, and the water bubbler has a single line, and then the transition of the paint color turns in to teams and continues throughout every gyp wall would be painted that color. So this is just a high level first pass at where we can introduce color and kind of get a concept.
And are you actually suggesting these colors?
This
Or-
is
No,
very high
these
level.
are kind of placeholder colors.
Yeah.
It's just,
Okay.
it's just to
Alright.
describe the concept, not to say
Okay,
we want to use gold in the meeting room.
okay, all right,
I think it
Okay.
starts with floor
okay,
choices, because
Okay.
those are the ones that you can start pulling color from.
right,
So the carpet
Okay.
or the resilient
Alright.
flooring, and you start there.
all right.
And again, just to caveat this, that paint color for the walls, we wouldn't decide upon until we're midway through construction.
Is it the same thing where we say we want Benjamin Moore paint, but they give us their paint?
We have to specify the paint, and we usually don't get Benjamin Moore. We
No,
usually
but I
get
mean-
Sherwin-Williams.
Right, I was just, I was
Um,
just,
So,
But they could usually match a color from company to
Yeah.
company.
right,
yeah,
right, right,
um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we've never had an issue with getting a poor quality paint. We might
Okay.
get a poor quality painter, but the paint itself is okay.
Somebody will prevent that from happening though, right? Which one of you?
Well, I mean, it's hard to prevent from happening, but you can go back
but then you say,
100 times and say you
Right,
gotta fix
yeah.
that wall again.
right, okay, Alright.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. okay,
yeah, but paint color, as Dominic said, we'll specify the manufacturer we don't even list the colors usually in the spec because it's
Okay.
a color to be determined by.
Right, and color doesn't.
Design team, and
Right,
color is gonna
yeah.
depend on the carpet that we end up with and some of the furniture that we, with the upholstery and all of those things work together.
Should have brought a chair.
He doesn't want
I know.
I can only imagine.
You're gonna be.
They're very
most
comfortable.
proud
Oh,
of
God.
this project.
They're free.
Okay.
So ahead with the paint scheme, let's say, we'll move into the 3 different floor finishes. So we have resilient flooring, then we'll go to tile and carpet. So here, just for everybody who is calling in, we have 2 plans where we're showing resilient flooring, so the meeting room and then the children's and study rooms. And you can see here a variety of colors, from a wood floor-like finish that we could use for the meeting room, to different cooler tones for flooring in children's, with the ability to have pops of color in some of these children's niches. So, going hand in hand with how we're treating the wall, we could then also have this, pops of color to the bar condition here, the study and the children's niches. There's one thing that we're looking at for patterning. We feel like, yes, we have small spaces, but there's an interest in the roof gable, that we have a slope there, and in the adults room, we have this angular form in the space. We've started to pick up on this angular theme that we'd like to play with patterning and create visual interest on the floor. And because of the concept of having color to this western portion of the bar building, we feel like cooler tones in the main spaces would play well against that. So we'll allow people in the room to have a look at the different options that we have laid out on a table here, but I do have some other images for these colors.
I'm a little confused with the patterning, the carpet, or is the patterning?
This is
So,
all resilient.
This is all resilient flooring, so we have
The resilient?
all of
It
these.
could be,
LVP.
it could be linoleum, it could be rubber. Well, actually, the ones on the right are all rubber, from Nora. The ones on the left, actually, those are
These are LVP,
all of them.
yeah,
Okay.
but we can do the whole
LVT.
lot that we are showing. Yeah,
What is LVP?
Luxury vinyl tile.
LVP.
Yeah, it's like rich Corinthian leather.
So,
It's the rich Corinthian leather of flooring.
so if we put, let's just say we put that LVT on the meeting room floor,
Mhm.
does something go under it?
No,
waterproofing.
Okay,
I mean, yeah, we're gonna have to have moisture mitigation on the slab,
right,
but it's going directly down onto the slab. The slab will be treated, but then it's going right down on the slab. There's no subfloor in other words.
And is the resilient
It's
flooring thick enough to be comfortable to be on?
I
to
mean,
stand
this is a resilient floor
on?
on a
Yes,
slab.
no.
It will be about as
It
comfortable
will
as
be
this.
about as comfortable. I've
Yeah.
done yoga here.
Yeah, I mean,
Aren't they better now?
yeah, they're better than this. This is about,
This is,
probably
this is a,
50-year-old.
at
Yeah, no,
least.
it's
tile.
Yeah.
That's-
Press that slightly.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some bigger samples, I think. you
Yeah.
can see around just to get a sense of it, but
These are all. Right? Are these
yeah,
These are better than what is here, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not like a tin floor. It's not like a sprung wood floor.
right,
Right.
but
And
it's going to be a lot of programs happening in the meeting too, right? So I know we were talking about dancing, So how,
Yeah,
Impression
that
do we need?
flooring doesn't work for dance. The only thing that works for dance is wood. So I mean, we've tried to dance on, and you didn't.
Some of
come
us
to-
do fall.
Right, you didn't come to the Urban Senior Center.
I didn't.
No, they have, I mean, it looks like marble, so it's probably, it's just some kind of linoleum, you can't dance on it. But we're gonna just have to go dance at the club, that's, so.
I mean,
What is the
we,
floor in the bathroom there? It's not anything any good.
Hmm,
The floor of the back room of the pub is not anything any good.
It's parquet, wood,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. yeah.
so I mean, you could, short of going to, a sprung wood floor in the meeting room, which
Right.
we don't think we can afford.
No, we can't.
We could look at resilient flooring on plywood, on resilient pads, on a depressed slab. It's more money than resilient floor directly on the slab. But it's probably not as much as a wood floor, the full sort of gym floor.
Right,
And maybe we price that as an alternate at DD. It means that you are spending a little more on the slab because you're creating a depression they have to form. So there's a little more money there. You're buying the plywood that you're putting down. And the plywood would fit on a resilient pad, so there's a little bit of give, and then the resilient would go on top of the plywood. And that's a possibility. It would be better than just putting the resilient on the slab.
and it'd be warmer.
But it will be more expensive, but we could
Right.
see what it costs. And I mean, that could even be. It's a fairly straightforward detail change, right? So I almost think you can carry that all the way through and do it as an add-alt or something at the end, bidding. If it's important.
Can I ask a question about LVT, please? Because
Yeah.
Yeah,
anytime the word vinyl comes up, I have to, I know I've said this before, but I have to say it again because I'm looking at it up right now, and vinyl flooring is toxic. It emits VOCs, and I want to just make sure that when we specify this, we're going to specify low or no VOC vinyl for this floor.
yeah, for sure, we'll make sure to do that. One thing, on a lot of our projects, they, are going for LEED. And so we kind of have a library of materials that meet LEED requirements. And everything that we're specifying here, we've specified on LEED projects before. So as far as low VOC, products, that's high on our list and something that we're just going to automatically carry over. Even though this project we know is not going for LEED.
so Lauren, I can tell you, no, granted, this is one product, and this would be our top choice product for LVT. Interface is probably one of the best companies in terms of its practices, both in terms of the materials that they use, but also in terms of, what goes into a landfill at the end, even like how they process samples. We have so many samples that come through our office. A lot of manufacturers just kind of expect you to throw them in the trash. They actually go out of their way to send you shipping labels to return them. But just looking at the back of this sample, material composition, free of orthophthalates, added formaldehyde and heavy metal stabilizers. It's Green Circle certified, it's Green Guard Gold certified. So that, it's got a range of kind of performance metrics for toxicity levels and things, and recycled material, things like that.
And is that what this is, or is that?
That is,
that
so
is
it's the same company as that. This
I see.
happens
Oh,
to
I
be the
see.
wood grain
Okay.
one, but it's the same
But it's the same company.
company as this. Nora and Interface are the same. It's thicker. This one is thicker. This is probably a slightly more
The more
expensive material
luxurious slab.
than this one is.
More
More luxurious, yeah. But Lauren, I think we're not gonna put any material into the building that is questionable, right? Everything is gonna be examined to make sure that it's at least low, if not zero VOC. And we'll be looking for the kinds of certifications that I mentioned for all the products that we specify.
And what is the warranty on these and how long do
This
you
is
expect it to
15.
last?
This is a 15-year warranty on this wood grain product.
And I just, given the conversation earlier about economic, keeping the budget in mind as primary, I want to just offer my opinion, this is not the MBLC talking, but I think that toxicity of materials is something that it's worth spending a little more money to prevent that. And I think some people in your community would agree.
Yeah, we agree as well.
And also, I think with this, how much more would you spend on it to have it be a better product that will last longer? So that in this long run, it is actually cheaper.
But we have to be able to afford the project now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get back to that, and we have a budget
Mhm.
of $6.2 million. And when the cost estimate comes in, I don't want it to be higher than that. Would that be the minutes? Please? That I've said that twice tonight.
Repeated.
Okay.
I think that was the third time.
Was it
Was
the
it?
third time? Okay, back corrected us.
Repeated at the budget.
I just wanna, I
Yeah.
don't.
No, you're right.
I want to get that point, and I want you to remind me also. I said that to Dominic.
Tuesday.
When I started saying I want things, tell me I can't have them.
So just,
Okay.
while we're dreaming, how much more is a wood floor? Is it I know, we're not gonna get a wood floor, but is it radically more and does it last a lot longer?
Is it more expensive than the vinyl
Yeah.
or
A lot more
rubber or
expensive.
something? I don't remember what the unit costs were. We have that information from the last
Mhm.
estimate. I do have any. I mean, I don't know. I really don't remember. It could be as much as twice the cost. Though.
Okay.
It would be twice the cost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would. So Matt, what is the feeling these days about rubber floor?
Rubber floor, we like rubber floor. We've actually used it a pretty good bit. We're using more rubber these days than marmoleum or linoleum because it's a little bit easier to maintain. There are a lot of good products out there, and the certifications that I was just reading off the back of this sample, which happens to be the luxury vinyl tile wood grain sample from Interface. Interface and Nora are part of the same company. Nora makes a line of rubber flooring that's good quality floor that we've used before. We've also used, I think Lauren mentioned in one of our earlier meetings, a material that's a combination of rubber with flecks of recycled cork in it that gives it a little bit more kind of visual texture and they're all kind of comparable in terms of performance and
But the rubber has more give.
more give than the linoleum. I
Slightly.
don't know. I mean, it's such a thin material, maybe a tiny bit. I don't know.
And do you have
But it's
samples of
appreciable.
these other materials today or? not?
I mean, we don't have every sample
Yeah.
here, but we've got a range of rubber and vinyl
We do.
or linoleum here. We can get more. We did not bring samples of the cork flex rubber, but that's an option. It's
And
like
is the rubber and the LVT, are they the same price? Is one more expensive
It
than the
depends
other?
on what you think. I mean, it's like carpet. Carpet could be $5 a square foot or $50 a square foot, depending on what you pick. So,
And we're not getting the $5 square foot because that won't last.
or the $50.
Or the 50, because Marianne will wag her finger at us.
So we have to find that sweet spot where it's the right price point and a product that we like and that
And
makes
that's
sense.
durable.
And
The
that's
devil is in the details.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why this meeting really is more about kind of strategy than it is about picking actual materials or certainly colors and patterns. It's, you know, how do we feel about the strategy of introducing color in those small rooms as a way to kind of create an identity in each of the different areas? So the meeting room has its own identity as distinct from the adult room. The study room is a little bit different from the main adult room, you know, so there's a kind of hierarchy of space. It's a way to introduce color, break up the sort of run of floor surface, you know, having the wall color then inform the floor color in those smaller rooms that might be a brighter color than a more neutral floor material that runs through the lobby and the.
It is, it's not rubber.
It's not rubber. I don't
That's
think.
right.
I don't think,
I
think it's lovely.
I mean, that makes sense. We don't want it to be a uniform color throughout the entire library, but we
Yeah.
want the colors
Yeah.
to blend into each other.
That's
I like, and I'm sure everybody here has their own preference, but I like more earthy tones, warmer colors.
I'm a cool color.
Okay, he's over there.
I'm so tired of earthy colors.
Okay. So,
I like.
so, yeah, but I mean, but we want
Let's not talk about what colors we like. That's a long way down and that's gonna be a very long
Let's
discussion.
do the cost estimate
yes,
first.
okay,
So,
yeah.
so I guess,
I do want to mention that, having different colors in different rooms with different functions also helps with intuitive wayfinding, and it's much easier to say,
this is-
you know, for children's, go to the green wall or whatever, you know, it can really help with navigation of the building as well.
You think people are gonna get lost?
Brad has his hand up, and I think it is a small building, but people need direction in our little library now, so being able to tell people actually,
Well, let's
I
see.
just think that's gonna be so helpful.
Reach them all
So,
over there.
yeah. So, Brad, do you have a
It's not a question. I just have to go. I've got other things I've got to do, and I'm sorry I can't keep going tonight. But it's been great joining you.
okay,
thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
yeah,
So I've included some imagery of some of the samples that I showed you in the intro slide for the LVT. Here you see the wood grain.
Where are we?
So this
Oh,
is
this is a
just
different
a-
one.
another-
Okay,
it's just an image to show you the floor.
I got you.
This, you know, could be an accent color.
I like those colors.
And again, different color.
I like that.
Yep,
But again,
concept
we're
is,
not having both color.
And then to tile.
Yep.
Yes, Dale, before I move on.
yeah, the concept is, I would support, your concept is valid. I mean, the idea of, you know, what you're achieving with color here, I'd support that.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
So tile, again, we feel like a cooler tone for the lobby. It also, it disguises some dirt and dust as well. That goes a long way against a super light color. We don't want to go too dark. We have specified in the past Mosa terratones. But it might be a little too dark. We have some options here. Metropolis have a few gray colors, which are a little lighter.
So we can go to that, because. Or it should be salt.
Yeah, there's kind of an in between, like
Right.
a happy medium. Yeah.
That's like a mid-tone. That's
This
the
seems
lightest.
really slick to me. I would think you would
It
want a
actually
higher
really-
coefficient of friction.
Non-slip rating.
It's got a great, actually,
Yeah,
yeah, for non-slip.
really?
These tiles are gonna have grout joints with grout in them, is that correct?
That's correct,
Yeah.
So we would, and Andrea is pretty ferocious about this. We strongly discourage light colored grout because when it gets dirty.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah.
It's gross.
We would probably try to match the grout with the tile color.
Great.
Or
thank
even a slightly darker color, but yeah, otherwise it's
you. Yeah,
impossible to keep clean.
Thank you.
Um,
my library that is not textured,
Mhm.
we don't have a problem with it on it.
Yeah, the
Okay.
porcelain tile, although it feels smooth,
Yeah.
has very good slip resistance. I don't know what it is about it, but
But
they
it works.
tested it, they use it a lot in like, you know, laboratory locations where things might get spilled on the floor, and it's a good material for that.
this Metropolis Grey 08, we liked as a placeholder because it had a green hue to it and it was tying in the slate.
Which
color?
one was that?
The one that,
Yeah. So going with the, what's the color on that again? It's slate green. Matt, what's the slate color? The
that
slate-
tile?
No, the
Oh,
slate,
the unfading green.
unfading green. Yeah.
So that's pretty close in color to
I
the
like
slate.
that.
So we felt there was a nice idea there. It does not mean that we, you know, are settled on this yet, but that was a nice concept.
Is there value in having larger pieces of tile versus smaller as far as all the things? You know?
We tend to go with
Yeah,
a
sorry.
slightly larger rectangular tile than we like the look of the rectangular tile better than the square
And you
tile.
would never do that, right? This-
No, these are
the
not for
sizes
size,
yeah.
it's just color,
Okay.
yeah. No, we would,
That,
I mean,
that's standard.
this is probably
Yeah.
more like what we would be using.
Mhm.
And it might be that sometimes they'll have this size and then they'll have one that's half that, and so you can get a little bit more sort of visual texture because it's not such a uniform grid
Less cost on labor.
with the bigger tile.
Bigger tile, unless they get too big and then it's.
Right,
all right.
So that was tile and then carpet. Here you see a plan where predominantly in adults, but also the reading nook and director's office. We're considering an inlay in the reading nook. So we could highlight the wall color in this accented inlay for the reading nook. The director's office.
So you
could
mean
take
you
its
have
own
two
place.
different colors of carpet in there when you say that?
That's
That-
right. So if the concept is that this larger adults room floor is cooler and a little bit more monochromatic, then the color accent can happen in the reading room to kind of play against that
Are these carpet tiles or these block?
tile.
Mhm.
So this carpet actually comes in planks, not square tiles.
Interesting.
So this is an actual carpet tile, unlike some other manufacturers. So we don't know what manufacturer we're gonna,
So we shouldn't get
That works.
attached to a particular.
I'll get too attached, but I think the idea is that, and you can kind of see in the top color, so that floor is this. Like, where it almost looks like, you know, contour map or something. That having enough texture so that it doesn't feel so uniform down the length of the building. It has a little bit of variety to it, but subtle. This one, I don't know if you have the,
Look, you can see the white ridge going, that's the edge of the forest. And the flood.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
Yeah.
yeah, so this, this has like enough contrast and sort of asymmetry in the pattern that it doesn't feel too monolithic and uniform throughout. We think that the sort of mid-range neutral for the main carpet, you know, whether it's gray or it's an earthier tone is good, but having a little bit of pattern, we think will help. This is the,
Doesn't having pattern help, like older people, how we get the perception, being able to like walk?
I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting.
That would be interesting to find out. I don't know about that.
Laid angle.
The angled one, we thought played well with, you know, the angles cut in the building, and it's a pretty subtle pattern, but again, it gives you just a little bit more kind of visual distinction as you move through instead of a kind of more uniform pattern.
So now going back to, so the contractor, we're gonna say we like
This,
these
we
three
want
carpets.
this carpet.
And this is the one we prefer.
Mhm.
And then the contractor is gonna say, I picked this one. And then is he gonna say, here are the 6 and you pick the pattern? Or is he gonna pick the
No.
pattern?
He's gonna pick one of the carpets that we say it's okay for him to pick.
Okay,
And one of the manufacturers, but not just the manufacturer, the line, because the line has a cost associated with it. So we're gonna pick 3 manufacturers with 3 lines that are within the same price point. And then in that line,
You get that section.
yeah,
Oh, I
right.
see.
So that's a
So
line.
we can
carpet.
pick one of those.
Right, so
Gotcha.
you get a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the contractor will come back and say, my price is for that manufacturer and that line. Tell
Okay.
me which color you want.
okay,
And what if you
Okay.
find another manufacturer in the same price point?
You can ask
So,
if,
it's really- I
if
don't
they
know how
could
that
do it, substitute it, but you know, they're only gonna do it if it's
works
either
for them.
advantageous to them or no.
Yeah, and then we're gonna get a carpet that is industrial grade or whatever. With low VOCs and. Yeah, I mean, there's,
Yeah.
they're gonna be very similar. So it's not gonna matter to us which of those we get, as long as it comes in a pattern or color that we like. And that is gonna change between now and when we pick it. None of these are gonna exist.
Right,
by the time we pick it.
Right.
Cause it's like, style, it goes in and out of fashion.
but does that have, on the back of those, does it have that same kind of information about the chemicals used?
This one.
Yes, there's VOC something not applicable. VOC,
This is Green Label Plus. Gold certified for some ANSI standard. I mean, they're different. They're different certifications, but yes, it has some of that same. This is 85% recycled content. 100% recycled nylon. You know, it's not all here, I think, but we can get that information. from
Okay.
the product.
But we have to get the information when we know what product.
Well, we're not gonna pick a product.
Right.
The list as the 3 options, we're not gonna pick one that doesn't meet the standards that we
Okay.
set for it,
Okay,
right? That's gonna help us
Okay.
decide which manufacturer and which line we're gonna choose. Generally
Okay.
speaking, the manufacturer, if, you know, they, Interface is good, that's the company that makes the LVT and some of these carpets. They're one of the better ones as it relates to, you know, recycled material and carbon neutrality and but all of them, I mean, pretty much everybody out there is recognizing that people want low or no VOC materials, that the increasingly they have to move in that direction. And it's just like the building codes get tougher and tougher every time they put out a new edition, and it's because they're, you know, they set the bar higher and higher.
okay,
And so, you know, anything we pick, I think, is gonna fall into the category of materials that we would think are appropriate for a public building. You know, even somebody with chemical sensitivity, and then within that, we can evaluate, well, this manufacturer is slightly better, and they are achieving a higher level of, you know, certification and some standard. The problem is there's so many different standards out there to measure things against.
right,
That it's sometimes hard to compare apples to apples, so,
right.
but we'll get as much information as we can, and
Mhm.
use that as one of the things to make a decision about the manufacturers that we pick.
Okay, good.
So Molly, I remember you saying at some point earlier that you should buy extra carpet.
Yeah.
And now you say they changed the,
Which is why you have to buy it now, because
Okay.
you're not gonna be able to buy it at the same time.
you'll never be able to buy it again.
Nope.
And even if you can,
Doesn't work.
the die lots change too. So from one production to the next.
Like a standard,
10%,
Yeah.
you know, is typical.
For adding
is that
stuff.
enough, 10%?
We were a little bit too happy to switch out carpet squares instead of trying to clean them when we first got them, and if we had tried to clean them a little bit more instead of
might
switching
have
them
been
out,
enough.
then we might have had enough.
Okay, okay.
And we definitely bought more, like the second time we did a carpet square project, we probably didn't buy 10% the first time we did it.
Mhm.
By the time you use up a large number, they faded and changed color.
Oh, so they don't match anyway,
Well, depending on the
Yeah.
pattern.
Yeah.
especially in those sunny spots. huh?
And then what about, I'm just assuming that like everything else, they're stain resistant and cleaning better, you know,
But how do they do that without PFAS products?
I don't know.
I will say that I surprised myself by liking that pattern.
This one?
Yes, when we showed it.
I like that.
Really?
Sorry,
Wow.
this one.
I didn't think I
We're gonna
would.
need two adult rooms.
Which one did you say?
Like
That-
the Bristly,
Yeah.
this one,
There you
I
go.
just thought it looked like
That's that one?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
We like-
just like that.
Yeah.
I don't just like that.
Yeah, I like that one.
that,
But the white witch is.
which is this pattern is also, there is a
Variation.
color version of this that is a little bit less contrasty too.
And it almost looks like maybe.
Is it a
that's-
little less gray? You know.
I mean, I think it
Does
comes in
come a
color.
brown?
It comes in colors also.
Yeah.
I don't know if it comes in, well, I don't know. We'll get the book for it.
Yeah, it doesn't, we're not gonna talk about colors.
Yeah.
today, but I'm clear they're not gonna let me do brown.
This is college.
In terms of stain resistance, I think that's, I think they all have some. Yeah, so this is soil stain protection ProTech too. I have no idea what ProTech
Right,
treatment is, so we would have to look into what ProTech is, and
right.
they'll all have literature on these things, so that you are not the first person, I'm sure, that has asked how they. You know, protect it from stains, and what that means is that. Yeah, we will have to get more information on all of that stuff,
What, yeah, okay.
but it's not like they're gonna treat it with formaldehyde to keep it from staining, you know, it's.
Right. We don't do that
Because
anymore.
nobody does
I
that.
don't know if we ever did that.
Well,
Right,
No,
Yeah.
we would put formaldehyde carpets, yeah,
really? Yeah,
There's formaldehyde in a lot of stuff.
and a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
So this is the last slide for interior finishes, just to kind of give you a sense of the strategy here. So a more cool, monochromatic, but patterned, larger space spine, and then pops of color,
And
you
then
know, in these smaller spaces. And this version treating the meeting room as, you know, an outlier to these other spaces.
So is there some, so are you showing the
So-
collaborative like all being the same carpet or?
No,
all
so
different
tile
carpets?
terminates here. Tile terminates here,
Okay.
transitions to the rusty carpet that Marianne
Yeah.
liked, and then transitions again to, we're locking that one in.
We gotta keep her happy. Okay, you can.
And then.
Put that in the minutes.
There,
And
what was
the-
it?
LVT, you know, so that there is not a hard transition point between children's
Yeah.
and adults. Because you will be seeing this view, you know, all the way through,
Yeah.
but that's not to say there can be a little bit of variation there as well, you know,
I was hoping for lime green in the children's room.
yeah. So we've
Didn't-
got our
didn't you
colors
just add
mixed
it,
up, we can
in
swap
West
that.
We did that in West Shutesbury, and
And it's
which I
golden.
like, but I will tell you that when the sun shines
It is
through those
golden.
windows. That green reflects up onto the white
I've
ceiling, the
seen
whole
that.
space glows neon green, it's
It looks-
intense.
Yeah, it is intense.
But we don't dislike that
I
color.
don't actually like bold colors like that in children's rooms.
No,
Or teens.
It was a real trend of like fluorescent green, and teens don't like fluorescent green.
Yeah,
I mean, some do.
I'm
But,
sure some
yeah.
do, but like not the majority.
Yeah.
Is there a library that has LVT tile somewhere that's like in Western Mass? Or a building?
Lauren, do you know?
I don't know, and I want to request that we table the discussion of colors. Just because, as I said earlier, this is gonna be a very, very, very long discussion, and it's already almost 9 o'clock, and I have to get up early tomorrow.
We can move on.
I think this was our last slide,
Yeah.
right?
I have on the agenda, notice of intent. Are we talking about those things tonight as well? Or they were on the, I just copied the agenda off the.
Right, and I just put everything on the website. So that way if something comes up.
We can
We're
legitimately,
not quite ready to talk about the well. I'm gathering more information. We're not quite ready to talk about the notice of intent.
yep, okay.
What else is on there?
Committee liaison reports, we're not quite ready to talk
We don't
about
have any of
that.
those.
And then other and unanticipated business.
I can't think of anything, can you? No?
No.
Okay,
Other than the meeting schedule.
Right,
The meeting,
which is here.
that's a good.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so what's next?
Our next meeting is the 25th. For subcommittee meeting, and I think we talked about the first week of November as the next building committee meeting, which will be a sort of page turn through the design development pricing set. Right.
So the full committee won't have a chance to weigh in on further conversations that the design subcommittee has before it goes out.
We can,
The
I mean,
25th
we
would
could
be
issue-
late.
yeah,
Prepare the decision making. I guess tonight is the last for decision making in preparation for DD, let's say. And, you know, we have all CDs where.
right, we do have time after the DD phase to make adjustments. It's not like, I mean, we want things to be
Yeah.
fairly
sure.
set,
Yeah.
but it's not like, you know, we can't make some tweaks to things during construction documents if we need to. I mean, I guess the question is, are people generally comfortable with where we are today with the status of the building design? Enough that we can put it out for DD pricing.
Well, the only thing that I think on this one, at least in my mind, is, like, we've never really.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about the site as,
Part of building, I think
yeah,
you're good for part of it.
Yeah,
I agree that we need to have a meeting where the full committee gets to at least see the latest version of the site plan.
so what is the next meeting with, Greg and?
Wednesday.
This,
This
yeah,
Wednesday.
tomorrow we have a good meeting, that's more NOI prep.
Mhm.
But we also have Fuss and O'Neill feverishly working on grading and to lock in our site plan. So we've been looking at moving the building from its previous location north by 20 or so feet. In the interest of a few factors, I don't have anything to share currently, but it's a cost savings measure as far as reducing the amount of clearing that would be required for site work. But we also feel like shifting the building slightly north just positions it better with relation to, you know, surrounding tree lines.
But it also, there's a drop off on the south end, so you won't have to adjust grade as much.
That's
back
right.
there.
And that's
So-
20 feet more than we already should.
Right,
Correct.
Yes, closer to Level
Yeah.
Road.
so it moves it out of the woods into the area that's already disturbed, and I feel like that's gonna be a good argument with the Conservation Commission,
Yeah.
even though there are some pinch points, as you
There are.
point out.
Dominic and I actually just took a walk over there before we came here, because I hadn't been able to come to that site meeting that you guys had, and so I mean, you can see
It's the
there's a
right
very
place,
clear
yeah.
line there where there's a clump of trees but then there's that kind of path
Mhm.
and a very clear line of the grade sort of rises up and there's sort of remnants of the stone walls.
Right, and you don't have to cut down the woods, you don't
That's
have to
right.
take down a stone wall, you
Yeah.
know, I think when you look at the site in person, it really is a better location.
Yeah, the challenge is, as I understand it at least, is that as we move further towards Leverett Road, and in the context of the
yeah.
25-foot buffer, it pinches things a little more.
Yeah.
So we're having to adjust the
Right.
driveway and parking a little bit.
Right.
I don't know if they did. what we
That's
talked
where the
about.
grading effort is kind of
Yeah.
critical to set the limit of work line. And that limit of work line currently is right on the 25-foot buffer.
So do you think you'll have a site plan for our next design subcommittee
I
meeting?
think that's what I was gonna say. I think we could make the 25th a
A full
meeting
committee
to
meeting?
talk about site, and if we need to make it a full committee meeting, we can do that.
I think,
I think 2 weeks should be plenty
yeah,
of time for them to get to a point where we've got. I mean, they have to be at that
Yes.
point anyway.
yes, they do. I guess my only consideration is it's going to be helpful to have the committee's input at the 25th, moving to the end of construction documents, but I don't know if there was a change in vote on the 25th in preparation for the DD submission. I don't think the site plan can adjust much in a matter of 5 days to the 30th.
But I mean, how radically is it gonna change?
No, I'm just saying.
What
if the committee-
feedback are we gonna get that's gonna change
Yeah.
it so
I
radically?
think it's
No,
more
so
the
I think-
courtesy of letting people. see
Yeah,
it
I
before
think
you
we
send it
can-
off.
Then that's.
Yeah.
I think we can do that on the 25th, and if you guys would rather have that as a building committee meeting, assuming people are available, that's fine with us.
Well, it would be noon, but could you do a 7 PM meeting?
Yeah, I can do a meeting.
You can do noon,
And me and Brad, right?
anytime, I'm available at any time.
Yeah, anytime during the day is fine.
Because I got 11:45.
Okay, does one work for you, Molly?
How long is the meeting?
2 hours.
Are we
Yeah,
talking about the 25th, the meeting on the 25th?
Yeah.
25th during the day.
We're talking about shifting the time?
Yeah, it's to 1 PM,
Okay,
there's Jeff conflict.
Probably that. 11:45 a.m.
Oh, I thought you were done. The one is better than one for you.
I can do one. I'll get back up to about 1.
All right, does that work for you?
Yeah,
One, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So that'll be a full committee then, that meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll,
So you should make sure that Greg and somebody from Matt's team can be.
Yeah, they should present.
Yeah.
I thought at one time there was, I was gonna talk to the fire department again, to see if we really need all that.
Turnaround. That's one consideration. I just feel that the actual circulation of vehicular traffic, it really helps patrons. It's not, it's probably the best parking layout as far as patron use, you know, coming in, turning around, or being able to exit.
I mean,
without-
otherwise you need at least a hammerhead, right, to be able to turn around, and at that point. It's inconvenient and you're almost gonna end up disturbing as much area probably to get the parking that you need, plus the hammerhead and. The loop, I think facilitates patron use as well as emergency vehicle use. They have. I think tightened it up, but they've also increased the size of the central planted area that they're using as. Vegetated swale, I think, or whatever, bioretention. Did they decrease the width of the drive around the?
I think
Cause it's a
around,
one, it's
but
a one
it's,
way loop.
yeah, the two-way still is 25 feet.
Yeah, but I think because they were able to reduce the width of the drive aisle around the loop, they could increase the green space in the middle, so reducing pavement, because it's a one-way loop, it's not a two-way. So as long as the radius meets the fire or emergency vehicle radius, then it's pretty good.
Well, put a price at the way we got it. And
Right.
we're in trouble.
Yeah, and one thing I think we,
The list that we got.
yeah, one thing that we talked about that did not get priced at SD was overhead lines, right? And the SD estimate still carry duct bank. And we had talked about pricing overhead lines as an alternate, and we forgot to list it as an alternate, so we can do that in DD. And that'll be something that we have available to us as well, when we talk about cost.
And what do you have as alternates? The pricing.
For DD? you mean?
Yeah.
Roof insulation, we're gonna be evaluating that this week with the potential increase from 5 to 7 inches based on building model or energy model performance. We talked about the overhead lines, we talked about possibly doing an alternate for a wood subfloor and depressed slab in the meeting room. Under a resilient floor.
I can't do that.
Can't think of anything else, but we'll come up with a list of things that we think are appropriate at this point. I mean, I think we're not doing the same kind of material alternates, but we feel like we've settled on a palette, but at least based on the FD estimate works, and people seem happy with it, so.
Structural, we're settled with.
Structural, I think we're set.
What about acoustics? Are you just pricing out the one?
So acoustics, you're talking about in the main space.
Right.
Yeah, so the suspended baffles, I think I told you this, when we started looking at it with our structural engineer, it wasn't as simple a swap as cover up the underside of the structural wood deck, and since we don't see it, we don't need it to replace it with plywood. The savings there from going from structural wood deck that's exposed to concealed plywood, we thought would offset the additional cost of the wood slat ceiling. Turns out it's not quite that simple, and to go to plywood is not as inexpensive as we thought it would be. There's more to it than that, and so we kind of lost that trading of cost, and therefore we didn't think we thought it was cost prohibitive. So the baffles are currently what we're holding for pricing. There are different baffle manufacturers, so we could maybe do that as an alternative. I think it's gonna be,
We're holding the most cost effective.
yeah,
Product.
the one that we used in Norway, which is strong product, and that's.
They come in colours too, so there's options there.
That's another thing that we'll wanna know. The manufacturing process, right? Okay.
This is the one, this is not the
Oh, that's
thickness,
the
but this is
thing.
what we used in Norwell. It does come in other colors. These are the standard colors. You can get a custom color.
But
Right
that's
now, we're
not
kind
it,
of thinking, we don't know. We've actually got to call into them to find out, probably. So we would most likely go with the standard color. We're thinking neutral is probably the way to go, but that's another color we'll have to pick. But that's the product that we're thinking about. In the smaller rooms, we have acoustic tile ceilings that are in like a traditional acoustic tile ceiling on a grid. And that's so we have sound absorption, but also so we have access to mechanical equipment above, because that's all of our mechanical equipment rather than that. So
Where is the access to the mechanical equipment?
it's through the ceiling.
But like you take the ceiling, is there not
Ceiling
like
tile.
one spot where you go in to do
You
it?
could take any of those tiles
I
out
see,
and just get a ladder.
I see.
Yeah, it's not an
Can
attic.
you walk up there?
No, it's not an attic. There's no floor. Everything is.
I can't
is-
quite envision how this works, but
So
I
it's,
don't know that it's
it's,
important, but.
it's, we call it plenum space rather than attic space.
Mhm.
It's just space between the ceiling and the roof.
Mhm.
It's an empty cavity of space that has mechanical equipment suspended, hanging from the roof structure
Mhm.
in that volume of space. And you take the ceiling tile down wherever you have a piece of equipment. Actually, do you have you wanna call up Sean's?
No, we don't
plan?
need to, you don't need to spend time explaining to this meeting.
So in that zone, there's probably 20 different air handlers that
Mhm.
each one is a kind of separate piece of
Mhm.
equipment that has a filter, that has, controls and things that need to be accessible. And so you can either have a hard ceiling with a hinged access panel, or you can have a tile ceiling like that, where you take the tile out
Mhm.
and you can see the unit, get a ladder up and replace the filter.
And
address
you'll
it.
have a map of what's where.
Yes, there will be as-built drawings for, so you know where all the equipment is. I think you even like it. So, yeah, yeah.
Are you thinking 2x2 or 2x4 with the 2x2
2x2.
pattern,
2x2.
just for the size? What you think?
2x2.
2x2 what?
Two 24-inch by 24-inch ceiling.
Oh, I see. Okay.
To get people in.
You prefer 2x4?
If you get a 2x4, it still looks like a 2x2. Depending on the product.
Yeah, I mean, if we do a 2x4, we just,
I'll coordinate with them. You're talking about access PV.
Yeah.
yeah. It's, the rooms are small, which is I think why we're thinking 2x2, but if we can get the layout to work 2x4.
We prefer. We
Yeah.
like 2x6.
Oh, yeah.
We like the big dimension.
Yeah, I mean, 2x4 would be our preference. We were
Yeah.
just thinking about the size of the room. It's
Yeah.
Small, but we can work.
Size
on
of the
that.
workers may not be.
That's.
Yeah.
Right, and they have to maybe hand up
But
equipment.
they only have to get up into the ceiling cavity.
Right.
Here, up,
Yeah.
not here.
Right.
So
But they might,
But they should be,
somebody down the
bags.
level might have to hand up equipment or, they, right,
Yeah.
like a filter, right, yeah.
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 So,
I mean, so actually, this is a question for our engineer too, because some of the size may be dictated by the equipment that is above it. Right, the size of the filters, you said, so
right.
we should coordinate that, yeah. I'll coordinate. Anything else?
That was it for me, yeah.
Does the OPM go out and get the commissioning agent? Yeah.
What is the commissioning?
process? Because the commissioning agent should be involved with the CD. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is a commissioning agent?
Yes, what is a commissioning agent?
So they are going to make sure that the building is functioning the way that it was designed, so when.
Is it during construction or after construction or?
There are some point visits where they,
Yeah.
they come in before construction is complete,
Hmm.
but the heavy lift is after construction.
Yeah. So also,
The punch
So
list at the end is making
Yeah.
sure
A
that
lot
the
of
air conditioning
mechanical
actually
equipment.
works.
A lot of controls,
Yeah.
adjustments and balancing, checking that the balancing of the HVAC system is done per specs and. Yeah, the lighting is working the way it's supposed to, controls, everything works the way that it was described in the specifications. So that
And then they come back
they have to
like
adjust.
6 months later, a year later.
Oh,
they
that-
can also be involved in the beginning. Point on of the product selection.
Yeah, they'll review the CD drawings.
Yes. They just don't come on site then,
Yeah,
when you start construction there.
Hmm. Are you guys on site during construction or is your job done at that?
no, we're here. I mean, we're anticipating weekly construction meetings, so we'll be here.
And are you here during construction?
Yeah.
He's here 40 hours
Yeah.
a week.
Okay, you're gonna be living in Shutesbury
Yeah.
for a while.
And do you guys write the specs or do you have a spec writing?
we have a spec writer that we work with, Galen Associates, Mark Galen.
And then consultants.
And then consultants provide their own specs, all the engineers, landscape, yeah.
Okay. So 1 o'clock on the 25th,
Yeah,
a full committee meeting.
And then sometime early November or mid-November, we gather.
Page turn.
What does that mean, page turns?
So we basically go through the design development set page by page. And, we'll
Does the
explain.
committee do that or you guys do this?
We present it to you
I
as a
see.
group, and it's really for your information, and you can ask questions. It's generally, it's a decent length of the meeting,
yeah, and
take a couple of hours.
we'll provide you guys with a copy of the pricing set when it gets issued to the cost estimator,
Yeah.
and so you'll have a little bit of time to go through it on your own, and then when we have that page turn meeting, we go through page by page, you may
So
have
you
some
literally
specific
turn
questions.
Pages, I see.
You literally turn the pages. And you know, we don't have to spend time on every drawing, but if there are questions about a specific drawing, that's the time to. Just wait till the CD page turn.
Thank you for working joyful.
And then when are you going to the cost estimator?
October 30 or 31st.
Oh, Halloween.
Halloween.
3 weeks.
Maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
3
Lot to
weeks.
do. Lot to
Maybe
do.
3 weeks to do
Yeah.
the rest.
Oh, sorry, it's 3 weeks until we submit pricing, 2 weeks for the estimate. Is what he tells us, and then it ends up being, 2 weeks and 3 days or something, but nominally 2 weeks.
Okay.
So we're gonna bring these all home with us.
Yeah.
Is that a window sample? We didn't. talk
The
about
broken
that.
windows, that is a window sample.
And is that how they come broken? Because it adds.
We're some
visual
fishing
interest.
A couple of questions had come up about the windows, so I wanted to bring this just so people understood what we're getting. This is a wood window frame with an aluminum cladding on the front.
And is that the color you're proposing, or is that?
No,
just
this
the
just
window
happens to
that-
be the color of the sample. It's probably a little bit light with the slate, but it's not,
Yeah, a little.
not bad. It's a little light, I think. And then the interior is just like a clear seal. This is pine.
Mhm.
It's just clear sealed pine typically. That's what we use.
Mhm.
So without the broken pane, insulated glass,
Is it double
And
pane?
it's double pane.
double pane, yeah. Yeah, so it's a pretty standard architect series window.
And you can get them in all
And
various
then you'll
sizes and
recommend-
shapes that you want.
Yep,
Mhm.
Yeah.
2 other alternatives are the same quality.
yeah. Usually Marvin and.
Anderson.
No,
No.
it's another one. Evil. No.
No, it's Pella or Marvin, period.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two best for sure.
I mean, for aluminum clad, those are your two, primary choices.
And Marvin is more expensive typically than Pella.
Yeah.
Is that
And we've had a bad experience with Marvin windows in this town. We've had a very bad experience with Marvin windows in the.
really bad experience with Marvin windows?
So,
We've used
How old
Pella
was
on,
the window? Like recent install?
No, 1995.
1990.
I think we've used Pella, we used Pella in Norwell, we used Pella in Eastham. We used Pella in Dartmouth, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've had pretty good luck with Pella.
yeah, I have Pella windows. They're fine. They're good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does someone want to make a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Yeah, seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, I'll start with, Dale. How do you
Who'll
vote?
I,
And Stephen? How do you vote?
You just have to say-
Dalmas, aye.
All right, okay. Paul,
I,
Penny,
Aye.
and Antonella's aye. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you all the next time.
Everybody.